As y'all know, we have been talking about this financial space and just some challenges that we come across in our relationships. But how many of you have really given thought to um, life at retirement and thereafter?
Let's talk about love and marriage the way that God intended. A life experience, here we share it. The No Fruit Podcast. Tune in from any platform. No Fruit Podcast. Will help your spirit transform.
Yo. So, I'm going to try not to give y'all a whole dissertation in the first 6 minutes, but here's what's going to happen. And here's the reason why I'm asking this question. I'm going to give y'all a little backstory. For those of you who are close and that are family members, knows that we've had a lot of family members, and not including just family members, but also some family friends and people close to the family, things like that you would consider family members that had passed away. And most importantly, one of them was a little closer, being Kafa's grandmother. And so in that process, and sometimes you don't know or understand and think about it, while that person is alive, what, they have, together, what they don't have together. Even for yourself, oh, you know what? I'm alive, man. I don't want to think about no death. I want to think about why I'm going. Like, I'm living, bro. Like, whatever, right? So how many of you have really given thought to not just life insurance, but just that whole planning process, that whole financial process? Because there's a few things that I was reminded of. Every situation is different. How people have handled their finances is different. What people have planned for is different. And I'm gonna use these two analogies because these were two that were closest to us. I had been a part of others, but these are two that Kaf and I could both speak to intelligently because we were a part of this. So her father passed. Her grandmother passed. Now, her father passed years ago, but her father passed. Her grandmother passed. Her father had things done a little differently financially. He had things covered. Also, we in that, because things were covered financially, I believe that even though he passed away on a Monday, his funeral was on Saturday. Most recently, as I have noticed, there's been trends. People might die on a Monday. They might not get buried until the following Monday a year later, because people have had GoFundMes, they had fish dinners and chicken dinners and everything else, and so in almost likewise fashion, Kafa's grandmother, very similar situation where she passed away. I believe it was a Tuesday.
Yes.
She passed away on a Tuesday, but it wasn't until 4 Tuesdays and a Friday later that she, had her funeral. Now, some of that wasn't necessarily all financial. Some of that was scheduling. So I can't even say it was all financial, but it's the thought of the financial situation, because there was some finances being juggled around for that process. And so those are the type of things that, I know for myself, I've been really considering and thinking about, of making sure that whatever we want to put together. Oh, that's the other thing too. Kafa's father, when he passed, he was cremated pretty much immediately. We had a graveside service, and his box was placed in the dirt. And so the traumatic part of a funeral, where you have to see that person laying in the casket, closing the casket, all that type of stuff, having it in the church, all that type of stuff. Like, that is an additional emotional toll as well. But I think that assisted in the I can't even say urgency because it didn't even feel urgent. But just the immediacy of, hey, he, in 6 days he was buried, like, type thing. So versus Kafa's grandmom, it took like almost 28 days or whatever it was, 27, whatever it was. Um, so how many of you out there have started that process of, hey, what is life is going to be like for me at the end of life, and all these things that I would like to see. I would love to have a gold casket, with doves flying around me and, all those type of things. Do I have the finances for that? Do I have the right funeral home that's going to make me look like me and not, Daffy Duck, or something like that. My lips all orange, and I'm black as I don't know what, so, um, all those situations. So, Kaf, I just made it under the 6. So,
Well, you have the intro and all those things. So
yes,
it's
I
not
made
all,
it just under 6.
Yeah, so you don't have totally 6 minutes that you've gone on, but we thank you for the 6 minutes. 6 minutes. 6 minutes now. Cough is on. Okay, so here I am. Yes, there was a difference. I don't think all of it had to do with life insurance. Some of it had to do with just end of life decisions. What is your norm? What do you want? And what is your family prepared for, and all of those things. So for my father, his family always had graveside. Not always. My grandfather, my father's father was not a graveside service. We did have that in a funeral home. But all of his siblings was graveside service prior to his passing on. So that's what I was used to. That's what I knew. That's what we didn't have that conversation prior to. He did let me know that, there was a plot, a burial plot where all his family was buried, and said that's, here's the information. That's what it was. He didn't tell me that he wanted to be cremated, but others were. Except for his father was in a casket and I think was buried. But all the others, again, his siblings were cremated, and the cremains went in the ground at a graveside service. So my mindset was, hey, we'll just continue on that, because he was in some of the, in that he was in the planning process with some of those family members. So I felt as though that, okay, he would probably want the same. So that was easy and simple because there were less moving parts. There were less people, venues, or whatever to deal with. So it made it a lot easier because of that. When it came to my grandmother, it was a little more difficult because she had had conversations about what she wanted, and she had created a burial account with my assistance, and she had a life insurance policy, but it wasn't the right one. She had poured more money into it than its face value. So we worked with an insurance broker and talked to them about what to do. Because she'd always say, I have a life insurance. I'm like, yeah, but you took a loan out on it. So if it's $10,000 and you took out a $7,000 loan, then your life insurance is only $3,000, but you're still paying $150 every month. And you've been paying $150 every month for the last 25 years. So, add that up, Grandma. It you don't have $20,000 or, whatever in a policy. Basically, when you cash it, you're only going to get $3,000 back because you have to pull back the amount of the loan. And she didn't understand that, but, we moved forward, took the $3,000, put that into a burial account along with other funds that she had. So we were able to have some money towards the funeral to go for that. And then when she decided to move from independent living and she moved into a nursing home, you had to kind of liquefy your assets, things like that. So we had to create a true, not only a burial account, but she also went to the funeral home. She selected which funeral home she wanted. and created an estimate for what that funeral would be. So she locked in at that rate, and we created the burial account, and it was in that funeral home's name, so that when she was passed on, that the funeral home could go to the bank and get that money. It was not for her. It wasn't for the family or anything like that. So that's where things were. And then when it comes to like, hey, why were there so many days from her passing until her actual funeral? I think, again, because she wanted it to be at her home church. So they had other things going on. They have programs during the day. They have programs in the afternoon. There were things going. So we had to kind of work that out. The funeral home that she chose, has limited staff. And if they had other funerals going on, like, hey, you couldn't select the same day as another funeral. So they didn't have that much staff to be like, okay, we're going to dispatch this group to this funeral and dispatch this group to another one. So it's just all of those things that we had to work with, and things were done on CPT as well. So that added to things. So you can, make the phone call, but you don't get a call back until the next day. So that kind of just always delays things. When you're working together in a we situation, as we talked about in a previous podcast, hey, we sometimes is better. But the we sometimes was not better, because if somebody got the information, they couldn't make a decision, because you had to take that information back to the we group and say, okay, we group, this is the information that we have. How do we want to move forward? Okay, we would get the answer, and then someone would get back to the church or get back to the funeral home and say, okay, well, this is what we decided. You're leaving a message. You're waiting a day for them to get back to you. So it was just some of that delay in things. I think everyone, a part of the we group, at least from my understanding, we had that communication years prior about the life insurance. We had the communication about the account set up, their burial account. And then when the information came from the funeral home and said, hey, this is what her bill is, this is how much she has saved. So in order for this to happen, because this is what her choices are, we're going to have to all come up off some money, So, and everybody was like, okay. But from the time it happened, and we knew she was not doing that well, but still a lot of folks, it took them a little while to kind of pull some of their funds together so that we can come up collectively with those funds and not all fall on one person and say, hey, we can pay you back, just because of some of our financial struggles as a family in the past. No one really wanted to step up and do that. So that's why I think
the challenge is, again, it's timing.
Mm-hmm.
Because one, we don't. Overall, I'm gonna be honest with you. Everybody's a poor planner when it comes to that.
Right.
To
like
some
I said,
degree.
nobody really wants to face it. And then even the planning that you make, it's not always complete.
Right.
Like you said, even the people that we've talked to, being our parents or our great aunts and things like that, they're like, oh, I got it all planned. Just, it's all in the folder. It's all,
Right.
My trustee has it all and knows it. It's like, okay, well, that's not everything.
I mean, and I think so for an example, and I'll just speak from a personal perspective, as if I look at some of my own family and what we call our family church.
Mm-hmm.
Our family church no longer exists.
Right.
Right. So if someone, because we do have some family members that are older, might have a little dementia, things like that. So they're not necessarily aware that their home church is gone, right? But that's part of what they wanted, or they might have listed, that they would like to have. And so the reality is we're going to have to pivot. Now, in some cases, almost like your grandmom, the home church is not looking for any finances from you overall, right? And so, but if you have to go to another place, which is almost what we had to do with your grandma, because of one, availability, number two, the accessibility, right? And so you go and you pivot and have to go to another church. Well, what is the cost of you renting out that building?
Mm-hmm.
Because you have no real affiliation with them, right? So so when it comes to that, the those type of things is not, like I said, you can't always plan for that, because you're going to think that, hey, my home church is going to be here forever. It started off in 1930. It's going to be there until 2030. Well, guess what? My church started off in 1930. It wasn't there. It's not even 2030. It's not there.
Right.
You get what I mean? So I think that's part of the challenge of just some of the planning, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then having to pivot. So now you have an additional cost that you didn't even plan for, because you could have all plans laid out, right? I.e., like your grandmother, she sat down, back, I think it was 20, whatever it was, 6 years ago, 7 years ago, whatever it was, and it was one number, and then now you come up, it's a like $1,200 difference, or $2,200, whatever it was, right? So when you start to look at that, hey, we don't take in account of inflation always, right? We don't take
what a casket cost, like you said, 15 years ago is not what a casket costs now.
Right. Even labor, or even just materials. So there's a lot of things that we don't take in consideration when it's time for us to go that route. And I think that's some of the things that we need to deal with overall, because we don't want that stuff to really fall on our kids and our grandkids,
right.
Because and luck, I ain't mean to say luckily, but we're in that sandwich generation, and so we have parents and we have children, right? And so we're looking at our parents and our grandparents as they are starting to transition, and now we have these other experiences. Now we have these other situations that are forcing us to have to deal with it. We ain't got no choice, because nobody else is going to do it, right? It's on us to get it done. So now we're trying to move forward with this. And as I look at myself, like, all right, Maurice, you got to get on the ball.
Right.
Because there's some things that you don't have together. And what is it going to take for you to get it together? And I mean, kind of like, we talked about it. And here's the other thing, too. We talked about it. It comes up.
Right. I mean, and we talked about life insurance when we first got married. We signed up for life insurance, after purchasing our home. We used the same company that insured the home, so we can get that discount. But because of financial issues, life insurance is one of the first things that, you look at and be like, gotta go.
Yep.
One of these gotta go. Which one is it?
Yep.
So it wasn't eating out. It wasn't, buying a new VHS tape or DVD.
Right.
It was, hey, life insurance gotta go. And that's what we did. We still have the paperwork like we still have the policy, but, insurance, that policy went away.
Listen,
and then
man,
years later,
we got a whole bunch of policies just sitting in there.
I was going to say, yeah, then we went years later. We were approached by an insurance company to help sell insurance. So we became sales people, got our insurance license, purchased the policies for ourselves.
Again, lapse.
And then again, things happened and something's got to go. You want to heat the house or you want to pay this, insurance bill. Again, they're not equal because heating the house was $2 and something per gallon, $200, $300, but the insurance policy, a couple dollars, but something had to go and that lapsed. So where we are now, where we don't have a policy, but we have a savings. So, hey, there's enough, there probably to at least cremate somebody.
Look, we got enough to buy the wood and put ourselves out back.
Right. We have our own yard. We'll just,
I'm sorry. Just throw you on top of the.
Yes.
You know what it is? We're going to do exactly like they used to do back in the day. Because I look at all the Lord of the Rings and all that type of stuff.
Okay.
So I just need you to place me in a white robe and take the 2x4s and make a little platform and lay me on it. Put the coins on my eyeballs, right? You know what I'm talking about?
I have not watched the show,
okay.
so movie.
Yeah. I'm talking about any of those movies that has to deal with medieval type, past king mentality. So just lay me on a bed of 2x4s with a wreath around my head. Cause that's what they have. They be having wreaths on their head.
Okay.
And then in a white robe with an olive branch in my hand and some old, John the Baptist flip flops on my feet.
Okay.
And then just, sprinkle me with some lighter fluid and just call it a day.
I can't do that. I'll be arrested.
Why not?
Because that's
what they used to do.
That's what they used to do, but that's not legal anymore.
Tell them that is your religious
Y'all all
beliefs.
hear this, and you can't do it.
That's your religious beliefs.
And I'll religiously be behind bars.
You won't be.
Or a steel door if they don't have bars anymore. So steel doors.
You won't be.
So yes, I will not make it.
I mean that's the answer to not having a life insurance.
Right. The answer is you contact the crematory. There's some.
You got a built-in crematory.
They ain't gonna. Yeah, ain't gonna happen. And even if I did burn it, it ain't gonna burn you to a crisp.
Why wouldn't it?
Because you watch those shows.
I do.
And
they be burnt. Like they be burnt.
Right, but they found the skull, they found the bones, like so you can't.
Maybe.
In the crematory they can get it hot enough that those things don't exist anymore.
Yeah.
They become dust-like.
Yeah, I mean you're right. Like there are some things that doesn't burn all the way or whatever. Even in the crematory, I believe.
Right.
But it is what it is.
Yeah,
but
so that's not going to happen. Again, we have some savings. It's not a life insurance policy, but it's our insurance policy.
Okay,
it's not,
I'm sorry. I mean, I didn't mean to.
That we have talked, recently about some of this. But getting, just for a moment, like, I don't know that in the beginning of our relationship, as we said, hey, what things do you talk about prior to marriage? What things do you talk about when you first get married? I don't think we ever talked about long-term decisions, like, hey, what do things look like when we retire? What do things look like if one of us passes? And how do we continue life on financially?
I think some of that is youthful immaturity.
I don't even say it's all youthful, I think.
I mean, but in all honesty, again, that's not a conversation that I've had with anybody, right? So it's just like until, in all honesty, until your father passed away, there weren't too many that I was in. I mean, there were some great aunts that I was a part of funeral wise. So by the time your dad had come around, like I kind of had a little bit of knowledge.
Right, and you were a church administrator, so you had some church administration background on how that played a role. So,
right.
That information became very useful for my grandmother.
Yes.
Where you were able to pull on your church administration
even when your
experience.
father passed, that's how I was able to get that's because of the family members that I had already passed. Mm-hmm. That's how I was able to get the funeral director for your dad. So there was a lot of things that I already, like you said, I already knew I had experience with. Yes. That helped a lot of the processes that we've been going through. Mm-hmm. Now, the challenge is that before my aunts and if a family member had a funeral, I just like, oh, wow. We go to the funeral, they're in the casket, then they're in the ground. That's all you know. And then we eat, right? I didn't know how much planning really goes into that.
I learned a little bit when I went to real estate class.
Yeah, but that's still while we were married.
No, I went to real estate class prior to us getting married.
Okay, I'm sorry. Well, we were together.
Right, we were together. So I learned a little bit about the selling of cemetery plots of a real estate part. So that's the part I understood, but haven't had to be in that position to purchase a cemetery plot, and that's, again, something that we've talked about, but we haven't taken that step to say, hey, where am I put you? Whether it's a full casket or even the cremains. Do we want those buried, or do we want to just I'm just going to stick you up on a shelf somewhere?
I mean, the sticking on the shelf thing, like, no, I don't necessarily want that.
Mm-hmm.
But I understand why it happens for some people or certain situations.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I'm not down for that. Like, yeah. I mean, if anything else, you just be buried in the backyard. I mean, my backyard is very useful, as y'all can see. It's gonna be used for a whole bunch of different things.
Oh, goodness.
So now, of course, these are all jokes. I don't need y'all to really think that all this is going to happen. Like, I really want to be, set on ablaze.
Right. And there's evidence that he said this.
So these are all jokes. I'm not going to just take Kafa. She's cremated and I'm just going to bury her in the backyard. Like, no, that's retarded. Yeah. I will do her correct. I'll make sure everything is okay. But in all reality, are y'all really ready? Because, I mean, these are just intrusive thoughts that I'm speaking out loud, right? Because you look at TV and you have certain things in your mind. You look at YouTube or Netflix, whatever it might be, and have these things in your mind like, hey, I can do X, Y, and Z. And like you said, Kafa, like, some of this stuff is not really legal. Correct. And not only if it's not legal, but it's not sanitary.
Mm-hmm.
Like, because that's a whole nother level too. So, so I just wonder, have y'all had these type of conversations with your loved ones of what to do, when to do it, how to do it, why to do it, where to do it, whatever it is, have y'all had these type of conversations? And I understand that they're not easy. They're not easy. They're not something that anyone really wants to look forward to. But these are situations that you have to have, or a conversation you need to have.
You have to kind of make it normal, not like, hey, honey, what's for dinner and where do you want to get buried, but.
Yeah, that's creepy.
You kind of have to make it normal because things do change, so I can't say that if we had this conversation 25 years ago on what I wanted and how I wanted things may not be the same as what it is now.
I mean, look, I'm going to be honest with you. If you say, hey, Maurice, I want, or like you said, 20 years ago, Maurice, what do you want? And I might have in my mind, no, let me even go back. 15 years ago, because your father passed away 15 years ago. So 15 years ago, do you want to be buried or do you want to be cremated? Well, Kafa, if I take a look at my family members, most of them that I know of has been buried. Right? They have a grave plot I could walk up to, whatever it is. Here's a moment with your father. He's getting cremated. Well, guess what, Kaf? I think in my mind, again, immaturity, non-experience, I think that my body, if they burn my body, I'm still going to feel it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because I don't understand I can't rationalize not feeling my body. Mm-hmm. You get what I mean? So, and to think that I'm going to be in a pit of fire at 100,000 degrees,
mm-hmm.
right? That I'm not going to feel it. Now, granted, those type of ideas has made me consider, like, Maurice, you're not living right. If you don't want to deal with that for eternity,
mm-hmm.
like change the, let's switch it up. You get what I mean? But in all reality, I couldn't even tell you what I would like right now.
Right.
Because of, like you said, 20 years ago, where was I? What was my mindset? How was I living?
Yeah.
Like you said, what was I believing? All those type of things. Whereas now, because even before, like my parents, my mom, she was like, I don't want a funeral, just have a party.
Right, but that's not saying what to do with your body.
Right.
That's just saying have a party. I can have a party. You want me just to have a casket and you just sit there and we all partying around you?
Well, for
Do
those
you
of
want to
you
be?
who, I don't know how many of y'all took a look at that video that was on Instagram the other day where they had this man
Sitting up.
standing up. No, he wasn't. This guy wasn't sitting. He was standing.
Mm-hmm.
He was standing up in a white T-shirt. And I thought, I'm going to be honest with you, I thought he was still alive. The way, but the caption and everything, I was like, no, this dude was dead. It was
the
saying,
one where the
rest
guy
in
was
peace.
spinning?
No, I didn't see that.
Yeah, this
No,
guy was
no.
like sitting on something and the whole casket, like, or whatever he was sitting on was just doing a
Oh, no.
360.
It wasn't
like it was
that
just
one.
spinning around.
No. This guy, like, they had a party, and I believe that somebody had a RIP on their T-shirt with him on it.
Mm.
Like, how you have a RIP shirt on with him standing up with two people taking a picture?
Are they taking pictures with him?
Oh, yeah. It was a whole video.
Oh, wow.
So my thing is like, yo, really? So no. Won't be me. So yeah, so I think those are things that we need to talk about. Oh my gosh, now I feel creepy and nasty now. Yeah. That's weird. Just thinking about it. I'm over here Harlem shaking, y'all. So we thank y'all very much for listening today. And I'm gonna go and I guess wash the dirt off of me, I guess, or something, because I'm not feeling right.
I'm sorry.
I mean, we need to have this type of conversation,
Right?
And all of you out there need to have this type of conversation in all reality.
Because we're not here forever.
We're not, and even though you would like to be, you want to be, but that's in all honesty, that's a part of life. It's part of the life cycle, So, so please have that conversation. Please talk to your loved ones, talk to your pastor, your rabbi, your monk, whoever it is, whatever faith you're a part of. Understand what your rituals are. Understand what things are going to get you to the place that you would like to be, whatever it is. But have those conversations with your loved ones because they're the ones that's going to have to deal with it.
And write it down because, at the end of the day, somebody can be like, well, mommy told me that she wanted, but she told me she wanted this. Well, when did she tell you that? And it could be different.
She told me that in a dream.
No, I'm just like,
No, I'm just saying, like that's what people will say.
No, but again, I think people have different conversations with those loved ones.
And
you know what I mean?
At different time frames,
right.
Different mindset,
You could have just watched a TV show and be like, well, I want the same thing.
Right.
Okay, well, you didn't say that to anybody else. So now it just makes it a difficult time.
Right.
So pre-planning is beneficial, for those that are left behind.
Like you said, at least have it written down so that way, even if you don't do the pre-planning with a funeral home or a church or whatever else, at least have the gist of it written down.
I mean, to me, that's pre-planning. Having it written down on I don't care if you put it on a paper towel.
Yes.
You know what I mean? But hey, on this such and such date, I want this. And that's it. And then you
on
a
date? You can't pick a date.
No, I'm saying on the date that I'm writing it. On today, I'm saying that this is what I want. So in case somebody comes up with another piece of paper and says, we got to go back and forth. Well, she said that in 1997. This one over here says 2000. So this trumps that one. So
at least you would think.
You would think.
So,
but then it might be which one you can afford because the one from 97 might be cheaper.
Right.
The one in 2000. So
that's all because she went to somebody else's funeral and realized that
I could have a whole carriage, Yo,
they made her look so good. She had MAC makeup on and all that type of stuff. I ain't got MAC makeup money. Yeah, I mean, I got Dollar General money. So yeah, your lip gloss might not be popping as much as you would consider, but does it really matter? I mean, does it make your lips more flammable?
I don't know.
Yeah. I'm sorry. Intrusive thoughts. Just think about somebody's lips on fire first. I don't know why. Retardedness, y'all. I need to go eat. I'm hungry. I think that's my problem. I'm not myself when I'm hungry.
Who are you?
I don't know, but I'm not me. So, but we thank y'all very much for listening today.
Thanks so much.
We'll talk to y'all.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the No Fruit Podcast, where we bring you fruitful conversations, ripened wisdom, and love that's deeply rooted. We hope today's discussion left you feeling uplifted, encouraged, and ready to take on life's journey with purpose. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe, leave us a review, and share it with someone who could use a little inspiration in their day. You can catch up on past episodes, send us your thoughts, or learn more about us on social media. Until next time, stay rooted in love, and remember, every seed you plant today shapes the fruit of tomorrow. Take care, and we'll see you next time.